Dopamine, often referred to as the feel-good neurotransmitter, has captivated scientists and the public for decades due to its prominent role in motivation, reward, and pleasure. But beyond its reputation for sparking happiness and drive, dopamine also holds a remarkable sway over the brain's fear circuitry, a hidden pathway that can transform terror into tranquility with chemical precision. To understand how dopamine flips the brain's fear switch and turns on calm, we must first explore the primal origins of fear, the intricate structures that house this emotion, and the unexpected ways dopamine interacts with the very heart of our anxieties. Fear is a survival mechanism as fundamental as the beating of the heart. Millennia ago, our ancestors relied on fear's sharp edge, alerting them to the presence of snakes in the grass, predators lurking in the shadows, or thunder rolling across a stormy landscape. For humans and countless species, fear is what kept us alive long enough to dream, love, and innovate. This emotion is hardwired into a set of brain regions collectively known as the limbic system, at the core of which lies the amygdala, a small almond-shaped cluster of neurons nestled deep in the temporal lobe. The amygdala is often depicted as the brain's alarm system. It scans incoming sensory information, searching for danger, and readies the body to fight, flee, or freeze. But as modern life has shifted from predators to presentations, the same primal alarm system reacts to perceived threats: an angry email, a looming deadline, a social misstep, with the same physiological intensity. Heart rate races, palms sweat, thoughts spiral. What exactly determines whether this circuit runs hot or remains cool under pressure? The answer lies partially in how the brain's messenger molecules modulate these responses, none more fascinating than dopamine. Dopamine's primary role is often associated with the release of pleasure and reinforcement. When we accomplish a goal, enjoy a delicious meal, or fall in love, dopamine surges, rewarding us for behaviors that increase our chance of thriving. But dopamine isn't limited to pleasure. It's a driver of attention, learning, and adaptability. In the context of fear, it acts not as a simple switch flipping fear on or off, but as a finely tuned dial capable of adjusting the intensity of both terror and tranquility. The journey begins in the brain's deep centers, specifically, a group of dopamine-producing neurons in the ventral tegmental area, VTA. These neurons send their chemical messages to various parts of the brain, including the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex, the latter being the headquarters for planning, rational thought, and emotional control. When faced with danger, the body's response starts instantly. Sensory information, what we see, hear, smell, is relayed to the thalamus, which rapidly alerts the amygdala. The amygdala scrutinizes the input, weighing it against previous threats or traumas, and, if warranted, triggers a full-blown fear response. Adrenaline floods the system, the heart races, muscles tense. But dopamine's arrival can, in some cases, quiet the storm. Studies in animals and humans show that when dopamine is released during frightening situations, it alters the amygdala's internal chemistry in critical ways. One of dopamine's most fascinating capabilities is to help extinguish learned fears. Take, for example, the classic psychological experiment in which a tone is paired with a mild electrical shock. Animals quickly learn to fear the tone, associating it with discomfort. But if the tone is repeatedly played without the shock, over time the fear response fades, a process known as extinction. During this extinction, dopamine levels in the amygdala rise. Through intricate molecular ballet, dopamine binds to receptors on amygdala neurons, essentially telling them, "It's safe, no shock is coming." As dopamine levels climb, connections between the tone and fear begin to weaken. The amygdala, once primed for panic, gradually uncouples the sound from the memory of pain. At the same time, dopamine is also at work in the prefrontal cortex. This brain region is pivotal in regulating our thoughts and emotions. Under stress, the prefrontal cortex can either amplify or dampen the signals coming from the amygdala, setting the tone for how we experience fear or resilience. Dopamine in the prefrontal cortex enhances its ability to process information, plan, and exert self-control. Imagine standing before an audience, about to speak. The amygdala flashes warnings of potential embarrassment or failure. But if dopamine levels are balanced in your prefrontal cortex, it can downregulate those fear signals. You're prepared, it whispers. You can do this. Calm prevails, hesitation recedes. Yet dopamine's influence is not one-dimensional. Too little or too much, and the dial spins off balance. Low dopamine activity, sometimes observed in anxiety disorders or depression, may leave the fear response unchecked, letting the amygdala's warnings blare uncontrollably. Conversely, excessive dopamine in the wrong circuits is linked to paranoia or psychosis, blurring the boundaries of real and perceived threats. Thus, dopamine's modulation is delicate, akin to tuning a violin string until the note rings true. What makes dopamine's flip of the brain's fear switch so remarkable is its context dependency. Its release is not only triggered by rewards, but also by novelty, uncertainty, and, the paradox, by the anticipation of both danger and safety. Scientists have discovered that dopamine can reinforce new, non-fearful associations, helping the brain adjust its expectations and behaviors. If you repeatedly face a trigger without suffering the dreaded outcome, dopamine nudges your brain toward the realization, maybe this isn't so terrifying after all. This mechanism is at the heart of therapies for anxiety and trauma, such as exposure therapy. When individuals with phobias, PTSD, or other fear-based conditions repeatedly and safely confront their triggers in a controlled environment, their brains begin to produce more dopamine at critical moments. This fosters neural plasticity, the brain's incredible ability to rewire itself, allowing new layers of calm to be built atop old foundations of terror. Dopamine acts as a chemical scaffold, stabilizing new memories and associations, and gradually silencing the frantic signals of fear. But dopamine's calming magic isn't limited to laboratory experiments or clinical therapy. It plays out in everyday acts of courage or adaptation. The first time you drive a car, your hands may sweat at the wheel, heart pounding at every turn. But as you repeat the process, dopamine helps encode new memories of safety, control, and mastery. The once terrifying becomes routine. Similarly, elite athletes, musicians, and performers train themselves to reinterpret anxiety, not as a signal of danger, but as a catalyst for focus and success. With practice and dopamine's regulation, the brain's fear circuits can quiet, revealing the calm beneath. Recent research is also uncovering the nuances of how individual differences in dopamine function shape our relationship to fear and calm. Variations in the genes that encode dopamine receptors, transporters, or enzymes can influence one's natural tendency towards anxiety, risk-taking, or resilience. Some people are genetically wired for heightened dopamine responsiveness, making them more adept at unlearning fears and embracing challenges. Others may require more conscious effort through meditation, exercise, therapy, or lifestyle choices to coax their brain chemistry toward equilibrium. Of particular interest to neuroscientists are the ways in which lifestyle and environment influence this delicate balance. Physical activity, for example, is a well-documented promoter of dopamine release, which may partially explain the runner's high or the mood-lifting effects of regular exercise. Sleep, nutrition, social connection, and mindfulness practices also modulate dopamine systems, providing practical techniques for tuning the fear-calm switch. Mindfulness meditation, in particular, has been found to increase dopamine availability while enhancing the prefrontal cortex's ability to inhibit the amygdala's panic signals. On the frontier of innovation, scientists are exploring new tools to harness dopamine's power for mental health. Advanced neuroimaging can now track dopamine release in real time, offering insights into when and where the brain's fear switch is activated or soothed. Novel medications are being designed to target specific dopamine receptors in the amygdala or prefrontal cortex, providing hope for more precise treatments for anxiety, PTSD, and phobias. Even the burgeoning field of virtual reality therapy is leveraging dopamine's learning-promoting effects, immersing patients in controlled simulations where they can gradually extinguish their fears with each dopamine-mediated success. Yet for all our advances, dopamine remains a mystery as much as a marvel, a molecule capable of both triggering the chase for reward and pacifying the chase from threat. Its dual identity reflects the paradox of the human brain, complex, adaptable, and above all, capable of change. In every new experience, every act of courage, every moment of calm won from the claws of anxiety, dopamine is at work, flipping the mind's internal switches, reshaping memory and emotion. So the next time you step into a challenging situation and feel your heart quicken, remember the silent work unfolding within your brain. Through a dance of molecules and electric patterns, dopamine is rewiring your fear circuits, offering the chance not just to endure, but to transform fear into calm, chaos into clarity. The brain's fear switch is not fixed. With the right chemistry and experiences, tranquility is within reach, one dopamine surge at a time.